All right, so let's get right into it. We're going to be talking about one of the biggest tensions on the African continent today, this constant push and pull between the hope for democracy and the very real threat of military power. It's a relationship that honestly shapes the future for millions of people.
And that brings us to a huge question, right? Is a country's military its ultimate shield, the thing that protects it from all harm, or can it actually become the single biggest danger to the freedom and future of its own people? It's a tricky one. You know, this source material gives us a really interesting way to think about this. It says to imagine the military as just a tool, kind of like the internet or even a hammer. In the right hands, that tool can build and protect amazing things. But in the wrong hands, with someone who's just hungry for power, that same tool can be used to tear everything down. So it's not about the tool itself. It's always about the person using it.
And unfortunately, way too often in Africa, that powerful tool has been used for the wrong reasons. It's led to something we can call the military power trap. It's this vicious cycle where the military steps in, promising to fix everything, but ends up derailing democracy and, a lot of the time, making things even worse.
Now, the main way this trap gets sprung is through a military coup. And let's be clear, this isn't just swapping one leader for another. It's a complete breakdown of the system. The Constitution gets tossed out the window, and suddenly the country is run by military orders. The entire democratic process just stops.
And don't think for a second this is some dusty history lesson. This is happening right now. Just look at this timeline. The Sahel region especially has been hit by a tidal wave of military takeovers. We're talking Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger. It's a really worrying trend that's creating a ton of instability.
So to really understand the difference this makes in people's lives, let's zoom in on a fantastic case study, what the source calls a tale of two Nigerias. We're going to put the era of military rule right up against the era of democratic government and see what happened.
Okay, wow. This slide really tells the whole story, doesn't it? On the left, you've got almost 30 years of military rule. Their big legacy? Creating states and local governments. Now, look at the right. 26 years of democracy. The list just goes on and on. Anti-corruption agencies, the mobile phone and internet revolution, massive financial reforms, huge economic policy changes. I mean, the difference in building real, lasting institutions is just night and day. It's not even a contest.
And after seeing a comparison like that, this quote just hits differently. It's a line that comes up again and again in this analysis, and you can see why. It suggests that even a messy, imperfect, frustrating democracy is still way, way better for a country than even the most supposedly efficient military government.
So why is that? What's the secret? Well, it's because democracy is playing the long game. It's not about one strongman leader showing up and promising a quick fix for everything. No, it's about the slow, steady, sometimes boring work of building institutions, piece by piece, over time.
Think about it like a relay race. President Obasanjo started the race. He laid down the first tracks with things like anti-corruption agencies and the cell phone boom. Then he passed the baton to Jonathan, who added new financial systems. Then Jonathan passed it to Buhari, who built on those very systems. And now President Tinubu is the baton, and he's pushing the next set of reforms. See? Each leader builds on what the last one did.
And that's the absolute key takeaway here. Real governance is a continuum. It's a marathon, not a sprint. This is the complete opposite of a military takeover, which is all about one person's personality and their short-term promises to fix everything overnight.
Okay, so keeping that in mind, let's circle back to the Sahel region. The military leaders there came to power making one huge promise. We will get rid of the insurgents and make you safe. So, let's check in. How's that going?
Well, this chart is pretty brutal. That first bar, that's the promise. Total security. And that second bar, that's the reality. In the years since the coups in places like Mali and Burkina Faso, the violence from insurgencies hasn't just continued, it's actually gotten worse. They've failed on the one thing they said they'd deliver.
And this isn't just a statistic. We're talking about jihadist groups literally expanding their territory, taking over more land under military rule. And the people who are promised safety, they're getting more and more frustrated. And you're seeing a lot more activists now demanding a return to civilian leadership, and fast.
But here's the thing. The pressure on a democracy doesn't only come from the military. You've got internal threats too. For example, some secessionist movements might try to stir up chaos, hoping that if things get bad enough, the military will have to step in, which they think might actually help their own cause. It's a complicated picture, and it just shows that you have to be vigilant on all fronts to protect a democracy.
Okay, so with all these threats, both inside and out, how do you actually protect the democratic path? What's the game plan? Well, the source material lays out 4 key pillars.
First up, you have to strengthen civilian control over the military. No question. Next, you have to invest in civic education, making sure every single citizen understands the true long-term price of military rule. Third, regional groups like ECOWAS have to be ready to act fast and hit illegal takeovers with serious sanctions. And finally, maybe the biggest one of all, you have to tackle the root problems, poverty, inequality, with real economic reforms that include everyone.
So at the end of the day, the bottom line is this. The democratic journey in Africa can be messy, it's frustrating, it's imperfect. But as the evidence clearly shows, that slow and steady journey is so much more productive and better for the people than the sudden, violent interruption of a military takeover. Which kind of leaves us with one final question to chew on. If democracy really is a long journey and not a final destination, then who is ultimately responsible for holding the map? Who makes sure the country stays on the right path?